I think it's the perfect time to rebirth the Pac-12 with this disruptor mindset, right? That we're going to continue to be a top 5 conference. We know that, but yet we don't have a blank canvas, but we have enough of one to where, again, we can think differently about things.
Makes everybody better. We're excited because we have talent in the gym that's going to help us win in the fall, but it's also going to make second, third on the depth chart better.
Welcome into the Inside WSU Athletics podcast, another week, and we are excited to be back with you. Great show planned. First off, a thank you as always to our sponsor, BECU. We'll be joined coming up by the Deputy Commissioner of the Pac-12, Rick Hart. We will talk some WSU volleyball with head coach Korey Schroeder, and we just got plenty to dive into. And with that, we will bring in Jon Haarlow as we always do. Jon, I'm thinking about we're just kind of picking up right where we left off last week. Had such a fun show last week talking with Kirby Moore and Caden Pinnock and Brad Larondo about Cougar football. Well, spring ball is here. It got started last Thursday, and it's great knowing that spring ball is off into the races.
Oh man, is it ever good to see you, Chris? Glad to be here for another episode. Yeah, we're off and moving. Started last Thursday with a practice after we had just talked about how nice the weather was going to be, and it was spring. It was cold, so they did the first practice in the Taylor Sports Complex. Which how grateful are we to have that facility in times like that. But that first practice, you could just feel it. I mean, there was energy. The guys were flying around. There were former players that stopped in. There were community members that stopped in. They were coaching them up, and the guys were getting after it. So it was the energy was palpable. Good to see them out there. And then we went down to Pasco on Saturday. Did an open practice down there. Tremendous hosts. They were down there. I don't know what the exact count of individuals that we had down there that were watching, but I think the guys liked being able to practice in front of a crowd a little bit, get a little more action that way. And it was nice and warm down there as well. We held a kids clinic afterwards, which was phenomenal. I think student athletes get a kick out of that too, and the kids being around. I think that's kind of at the grassroots level. That's what it's all about, right? And we had a ticket booth set up there, a ticketing table with information. We had a merch tent with the bookie that was out there. And we had Chancellor Haynes, who is the chancellor for the Tri-Cities campus and the Vancouver campus, join us down there, which is really cool to be able to blend the campuses together for an event like that around the athletic program. We had Coach Price stop by there for a little bit. So there was a lot of moving and shaking. It was just exciting. My son and I went down there, and he was bummed because we had to get back for an event here, a great event at the with the Pullman Chamber, their cabaret, but we had to leave before the youth camp. So any of the players would be like, "Hey, buddy, you going to play?" And I'm like, "Hey, stop. He was bummed." So he was mad at me for a little bit, but we're back on good terms now. But a great way to spend a Saturday, and just excited that how much Coach Moore and his staff value and understand how important that is to get around to our fan base and bring the Cougs to them. And they've done it with energy and connection and engagement, and pretty awesome to see.
And this is an understatement, but the Tri-Cities, that is Cougar country. So many great Cougs live there, from there. Of course, Kirby Moore, we're a stone's throw away from Prosser when the team is there in the Tri-Cities. And on that note, Cougar Athletics will be back in the Tri-Cities before we know it.
We will. Friday, April 17th in Prosser for Night with Cougar Athletics down there. We'll be at the Smasny Wine Cellars. It's sold out, so if you haven't got your tickets, I apologize for that. It is the place to be in Prosser that evening, but if it's anything like what it was in Seattle, the energy is going to be really good, and excited to raise more funds for student athlete scholarships and just be able to be around more Cougs and a night to celebrate. I forgot to mention, though, Chris, coming off the kids camp that we did in Tri-Cities this weekend, traveling roadshow that we are, headed to Spokane, April 4th. So they'll do a practice up there at Union Stadium in Spokane. I think it's actually part of the Meade school district up there. So they'll be at Union Stadium in Meade, practice, followed by a youth clinic, Saturday, April 4th. Hope to see Cougs there.
Great opportunity coming up. That is this weekend for all the Cougs up there in Spokane. And since we last talked, our last episode, the theme games have been announced for the football season. I'm going to run through these lightning round, John, and then I want to get your reaction to it. But the opener, September 19th, it's going to be the Crimson out. September 27th, when Arizona comes to town, they'll be Stripe the Stadium. And then it's October 3rd, Fresno State Family Weekend. October 24th, when Boise State makes their way to the Palouse. It's Homecoming Weekend. November 14th, Colorado State the opponent, Native American and Military Appreciation Day. And then on November 28th, it's that flex game. That will be Senior Day.
We have an exciting home slate, and appreciate all the engagement from our stakeholders, our fans, and others sharing feedback on these. This is a complete, as we determine these theme games and how it fits appropriately with the academic calendar and the community calendar and state calendar and everything else, to make sure we're hitting on everywhere that we need to, and how it all fits together. Appreciate all the departments across campus that help us with solidifying those dates. Try to make them fun. If you don't already, get your tickets, get your season tickets, make your reservations, book them when you can. We want to see, this is the ultimate litmus test at how we're doing as a fan base, how we're doing as a department. We got to get butts in seats. I think we're going to have this, as we've talked about before, a reimagined game day environment inside the venue this year, with expanded scoreboard, lights that are colorized, that sync with sound, new turf. We talked about in a previous episode. We're off and running in that project. So you don't want to miss a fall Saturday here in Pullman at Giesa Field. It's going to be exciting. I think the product on the field is going to be exciting. So get your tickets. Can't wait to see everybody in the fall. It's going to be one that you don't want to miss.
Can't wait. Cougar Football Saturday will be here before we know it. And this feels like it's a particularly newsy open to the podcast, because this is awesome. When this comes around, it's time to announce the Hall of Fame class. The WSU Hall of Fame announced the 2026 class. And if you haven't seen it yet, we're excited to tell you about all these great Cougs who are going to be honored. The class, it's going to be linebacker for the WSU football team, Lee Blakeney, 1980 to 1984, the all-time leading tackler, 524 tackles. Volleyball head coach Cindy Frederick from 1989 to 2003. She was at the helm of the program. More wins as a head coach, 278, than any women's coach in WSU history. And then the 1976 baseball team, that was the last baseball team to reach the College World Series. The 1981 football team went 8-3-1, reaching the Holiday Bowl. First bowl game for the program in 50 years. The 1985 WSU women's cross country team, they finished tied for 7th at the 1985 NCAA championships. That remains the best finish in program history. And there's some outstanding teams that are going to be honored as part of this class. The 1996 volleyball team went 27-6 and reached the Elite Eight for the first time in program history. And the 2006 women's rowing team finished 4th at the NCAA championships, the highest finish by any WSU women's sports program at an NCAA championship. And I know Coug fans everywhere, and we're going to be excited here on the Palouse in Pullman to honor all those great members of the class.
What a prestigious list, Chris. It's awesome to see these teams, and both Coach Frederick and for Lee Blakeney to be recognized. We spend a lot of time, as we should, on this podcast talking about our current student athletes. We get to chat with them, see them day to day. But behind the scenes, we talk about a lot of our former student athletes as well. The folks, all of which are on this list, plus some. I mean, our Hall of Fame continues to grow, which is amazing, as it should. There have been so many tremendous Cougs that have come through here, but they've laid the foundation for what our student athletes are able to do on a daily basis now, across the gamut of all of our sports, that have achieved the highest level of success that you dream of as a kid. And many of our student athletes that are here now came here because they understand of the success or heard the stories about the teams that we just listed here, or some of the others that have been a part of the Hall of Fame. So can't wait to be able to celebrate these individuals and these teams in a proper way, get them solidified in the Hall of Fame where they deserve to be. solidified as part of the Cougar Athletic Hall of Fame for eternity. And that's how it should be. And so excited to have more conversations. You turn into the podcast for breaking news like we just did here, and pretty excited to be able to share this with the group.
And kind of the cherry on top is, more to come on this, but I think we're going to be able to get some of the Hall of Fame inductees joining us on the podcast. So we'll not only be able to honor them when it's time for the ceremony, but I think we're going to have some really neat conversations coming up as well. And now transitioning from those great Cougs to the Cougs of the present, what has happened since our last edition of the podcast? Well, baseball, they captured the opening game of the series against Nevada at Bailey Brayton Field. Wolfpack ended up taking the series. They took 2 out of 3 over the Cougar baseball team. The squad will return to the road this week, have a 3-game series at San Jose State. For track, they open the season this week. That's April 2nd through the 4th in the Bay Area. Tennis swept both matches in the Bay Area, defeating St. Mary's and Pacific. This week, they'll be at home to host Gonzaga, and that is on Saturday. Women's golf last week at the Silicon Valley Showcase in California. That is coming up there. That's what they had there. And then they have this week at the Silverado Showdown in Napa. That's starting on Monday. Men's golf, they finished 10th at the Goodwin in Stanford, finished ahead of 6 teams ranked in the top 50 for the second straight event. Next action will be April 10th through the 12th. That will be in Davis, California. And rowing opened the season at the San Diego Crew Classic. A solid start to the season, reaching the grand final in the Varsity 8, second Varsity 8, and Varsity 4. Next action, April 11th, when they host Gonzaga in the only home regatta of the season. Me and my family plan on being there, and looking forward to that.
We had some really great results and some more opportunities to see Cougs here in the coming weeks. Baseball was awesome to see the crowds. Friday, Saturday, we had upwards of 1,200 folks at each of those games. Weather was great, and even Sunday, the weather wasn't fantastic, but we still had a really good group of folks that came out to watch. So appreciate everyone being there and battling the elements for that. Excited for outdoor track to get rolling. I know that crew is ready to go as well. Men's golf continues to stack some really great results, and I know rowing was excited to finally compete in Mission Bay, and they turned over some really great results there too. So we say it often on here, Chris, but the Cougs are competing at a high level. I'm grateful for the very, very, very small part that I get to play in that, because our student athletes are doing incredible things here and in the classroom. Great thing to be a part of.
Well, let's shift gears. We got a couple of great guests that we're excited to visit with. Coming up first, Rick Hart from the Pac-12, and then we'll have Korey Schroeder with an update on WSU volleyball. That's all after this word from our sponsor, BECU.
How do you spot a Coug in the wild? Head to toe crimson, gray, and, well, anything except purple? A simple go Cougs at an airport halfway around the globe? Or maybe just a little pride from BECU and some extra money in your pocket when you pay for your tacos. Get the card Cougs everywhere recognize. Join today. BECU. Go Cougs.
Here we go. We're excited to welcome in our first guest on this week's episode. It's a debut, John, but someone that we're all fired up to visit with today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think our fan base will be excited about this. Someone who I've had the fortunate, maybe not so much on his end, but been lucky to spend quite a bit of time with here over the last couple of months. Senior Vice President, Deputy Commissioner for the Pac-12, Rick Hart. Rick, thanks for joining us today, sir.
Yeah, thank you, John and Chris, for having me. I appreciate it. John, I've enjoyed our conversations, and I want to congratulate you on the success of Washington State University under your leadership. You've done a tremendous job leading through this time of transition, so congratulations.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Your $20 bill is in the mail. It should be getting there shortly.
That's my joke. Come on.
We'll get all the hard-hitting questions here shortly, but I believe you're slated to come to Pullman here in a couple of weeks, I think middle of May. Will that be your first trip to Pullman?
It absolutely will. Yeah, it will. So I'm looking forward to it. I have not been there. In fact, I've never played a game, haven't been there for a competition, which is a little surprising. I think we did play Washington State when I was at OU, but it was the 2003 Rose Bowl. So
That's right.
So
That's
did
right.
not get to Pullman. Yeah.
Well, let's get a little background on you for Coug fans who might not know your history. You're a two-time athletic director of the year while at SMU. How did you get into college athletics?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm not sure I had a choice. It's kind of the family business. I grew up around it. My grandfather was a college football coach, athletics director, and conference commissioner. And my dad was a high school basketball coach and then transitioned. He was a college athletics director as well. Our son is at Northwestern University, so he's a fourth generation college athletics administrator. So, but you know, I say all that. I love it, and even though it was something I grew up with and around, and I knew pretty early on this is what I wanted to do for a career. You know, it's a vocation. It really is a calling. You know, I really, it's hard work. John knows that. There are certainly challenges today more so than ever. But at the same time, I've loved what I've done. And so I'm one of those very lucky people who had a vision for what I wanted to do with my professional life. And it's become a lifelong career and journey for me. And I've never looked back and never second guessed it.
I have to imagine there were quite some, on holidays, family get together with dinners, the conversations that you all had, given that lineage of everyone being in the industry, had to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of sports talk. Yeah, even still today. Somehow my daughter she's come around, but yeah, I'm like, who do you belong to? She, for the longest time, I think she kind of resisted a little bit with the sports.
Sure. So you've been with the league, with the Pac-12 now for a handful of months. You and I have interacted because there's quite a bit of you serve as a liaison to the AD group, briefing and debriefing with a lot of the things that we're working through or voting on or what we have coming up. Serve as a lot of information transfer there. Can you kind of explain what your overall role is for the league?
I will, best I know. No, you know, I was excited when Teresa and I first spoke about the opportunity. First of all, you know, a lot of this has to do with the belief in the leadership. And, you know, because it's important that you're aligned with the leader, that you share values, that you share, you know, a vision. And so I believe in Teresa is the first thing I'll say. And I've really enjoyed learning from her in these couple months I've been with the league. And, you know, so the other part of it is, you know, just the opportunity, John, to liaise with ADs. That's probably the most comfortable part of the role, obviously, being a former colleague. And I really do enjoy our conversations across your peers. And then making sure Teresa can focus where she needs to, right? So that she can do the big picture strategic meetings and conversations and activities that we need her focused on. That's a big part of the role. I love being a part of the leadership team, you know, trying to be a good teammate, provide my perspective where it can be helpful. Most of the time, what not to do, but even still, getting it out there, you know, and trying to help shape the trajectory of our conference. You know, our vision, our strategy has been a lot of fun. And then just working with our team, you know, how do we get better? How do we make sure that we're providing the type of services that you want, you know, that the athletics directors are informed, heard, and engaged. You know, I think that's probably, you know, where I try to spend most of my time.
Well, you've done a tremendous job with that over the first couple of months here. You kind of mentioned it during your description. Your previous career, you're an athletic director at SMU for 12, 13 years, quite a bit of experience there. How do you think your experience there helped in your role that you're serving for the Pac-12?
Yeah, I hope there's some that translates that's helpful. Again, probably particularly, hopefully for you and your colleagues. I can certainly bring to the conference staff, and I'm not the only one who can bring this perspective, but, you know, some relatability to what you're dealing with, what your president, you know, again, I haven't been in those roles, but I have a strong understanding for campus life and the challenges and the opportunities, and the change that you're faced with. And so I think that helps to inform perhaps, again, how can we help, right? And some relatability there. Probably because I haven't been in a conference office, hopefully there's some value also that, there is no way we've always done things with me. This is all new. And so, I hopefully in a respectful way can, challenge certain thoughts or mindsets or again, bring a different perspective. One that's not, I guess, informed or biased by previous, activities or strategies or things of that nature. So I think fresh perspective, fresh set of eyes, and then again, that campus perspective and mentality and relatability.
And on that note, you bring a unique point of view to all of this. But if you could explain to someone about the role the conference office plays for the campuses, how would you describe that?
I would describe it as that we should be facilitating and enhancing the institutional, the member institution priorities and objectives. And maybe that's an oversimplification. It's a great question, and it's probably a question that I should have asked Teresa to make sure I know how she'd answer it. But I think that's, you don't have to overcomplicate it, right? I mean, our job is to make John's job, I don't want to say easier, but we want to reduce his frustrations, can't eliminate them, but I think enhancing, the things that are important to Washington State University, facilitating the success of the athletics program, the university, maybe providing information and data, right, so that we can make informed decisions, I think is another important role that the conference office can play. So being a resource, right, to the member institutions, and then figuring out where there are efficiencies, perhaps, collectively as a group, and where we can help as nine versus individually.
While at SMU, you led a transition from the American Athletic Conference to the ACC. Are there any similarities you have seen so far in the transition that the Pac-12 is currently undergoing?
I think so. Again, and certainly it's not apples to apples, but I got to SMU in 2012, and when I arrived, we were going into the Big East Conference. And I'd take you back just to put a little additional context around your question. So I was actually at SMU when the Big East unraveled or split. And then we ended up forming a new conference, the American Athletic Conference. So I was with the American from inception, as was my president, all the way through the transition to the ACC. And so, I've been a part of, again, this is different because the Pac-12 has incredible tradition, history, brand, equity. The American didn't have any of that. It literally was a brand new conference. But there are some similarities, I think, between starting something like that anew. And then even, we had some legacy schools that came with us from the Big East. And so there were some differences. We had the schools that were going in, and then we ended up adding some new members after we created the American who were kind of coming on the back end of it. So, I think that can help, again, maybe lend a perspective and experience that is unique that could be applicable to what we are doing together with the new Pac-12. And when we launch on July 1st with, 6 football plus Gonzaga, 7 new members. So it's incredibly exciting. This is probably more exciting, at least for me, because I wasn't here through all of the hard work that got us to this point. I just get to be here for the fun part. But this is a lot more exciting than it was to be starting a new conference out of necessity. I will say, for me personally, but hopefully that perspective can help, Chris.
It really is an exciting time as we continue. I think I say this every episode, but we're just flying towards that July 1 launch date. A lot of excitement around that. How do you think, from your perspective, the Pac-12 has positioned itself against other conferences moving forward?
Yeah, I think this is, look, there's a lot of things that aren't ideal or that manifest in challenges relative to a little bit of the chaotic nature of college athletics right now, the fluidity of it, the lack of structure, et cetera. I think it's the perfect time to rebirth the Pac-12 with this disruptor mindset, right? That we're going to continue to be a top 5 conference. We know that, but yet we don't have a blank canvas, but we have enough of one to where, again, we can think differently about things, and we're going to do some things. And I think you saw that immediately with the flex concept, with the 26 football schedule. And I know there are things about that aren't perfect and that we're going to have to work through it logistically and et cetera. But, that's something that I think others immediately said, oh man, that's pretty cool. And I wonder if we should do that, or I wish we could do something like that. And I think that's only going to grow as we get into week 10, 11, 12, and we see how that starts to help us position our top teams for the postseason.
You kind of scratched the surface on my next question here, but Jon was talking about how the Pac-12 has positioned itself, and you kind of were leading into it about how the conference is going to operate. How do you expect the new Pac-12 to operate compared to the previous iteration?
Well, yeah, great. I don't have a point of reference, right? So comparatively hard to say, but anecdotally, I'll reiterate that we have a great opportunity to be incredibly innovative. And I think that's exciting and that's fun. And that's something that our athletics directors and our presidents, I can tell from the few meetings I've been in, embrace. And there really is a lot of unity around, not gimmicky, right? Not do it just to do it. There's some things you got to block and tackle, and we don't want to overthink things. But when we can think differently, and I'll use the student athlete experience as an example, right? Like how we can think about how to deliver a modern student athlete experience and what that might look like, how we might partner with them more as a business partner, right? And that mindset going into it. I think is I don't think it will resemble the previous iteration in those ways. Obviously, we want to protect and preserve the core of the values, the brand, the things I talked about, but we have an opportunity to think completely differently about this conference and how we move forward together.
One of the ways that the Pac-12 had, like you were mentioning, had been thinking differently and positioned itself to be ahead of some other conferences. And I'll give a shout out to Michael Maldonari, and who heads up Pac-12 Enterprises for us and does a tremendous job with the league, continuing to put us out there. But maybe talk through how Pac-12 has positioned itself as a leader with the ability to produce content for the schools, with everything right there, state-of-the-art facility, continuing to push the brand. Maybe talk through the advantages that gives us.
Yeah, I think that, I was talking to Teresa about this. We were together in San Ramon last week, and it was a courageous decision by Washington State and Oregon State to maintain the assets of the Pac-12 network and to develop Pac-12 enterprises. And I say courageous because obviously there was a lot of uncertainty, instability, and it's expensive to operate, particularly during the transition period, right? And so, but to have the vision, and to understand that could be a differentiator for the Pac-12 conference going forward, I think was really wise and really thoughtful. And now we're starting to see, how that could play out. We're still developing the business plan. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do with enterprises and that Michael Molinari and his team will lead that we don't even know about yet. But, it's a brilliant group of individuals, the way they think, the way they engineer. I didn't fully appreciate until I got here and learned the story and toured the facility, got to meet the people. The Pac-12 has invented literally a number of technologies, right, that exist today that are deployed by major networks, right, technology companies. That's the kind of innovation that's taking place and has been taking place. I think the difference this go around is we will have a business mindset. So it won't just be how many events we can produce and distribute, et cetera, which will still be a big part of it, right? but we really want to be, and I think Pac-12 Enterprises can become almost like the hub for broadcast and distribution in the West, right? And then you think about what that could mean, and the opportunities for partnerships, for revenue generation, to elevate our brand and our presence. And so I think the sky's the limit there. And again, I'm glad I'm here to be a part of that ideation and to see that come to fruition, and just to be around the table as those conversations take place. So I think tremendous asset, John, brilliant vision, by, again, Washington State and Oregon State. And now we all get to benefit from it going forward.
I think that's really well said. Rick, we appreciate you taking the time. We'll let you get back to your day job here, but I'm grateful for all your hard work and your leadership with the league. Selfishly, I'm really grateful to know you. You've been really generous with your time and with your ear as I figure some things out on the day-to-day basis as well. So thanks for joining us today. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. We're in it together. I'm really excited and fired up, and can't wait to be in Pullman here in a few weeks.
Well, coming up, we will have a WSU volleyball update. That's right after this.
How do you spot a Coug in the wild? Head-to-toe crimson, gray, and, well, anything except purple? A simple "Go Cougs" at an airport halfway around the globe? Or maybe just a little pride from BECU and some extra money in your pocket when you pay for your tacos. Get the card Cougs everywhere recognize. Join today. BECU. Go Cougs.
This week's episode continues, and John, it is always a good time to be talking a little Cougar volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Happy to be joined now by head volleyball coach Korey Schroeder. Korey, you were with us in the fall. We've got through that season. People may think volleyball is a one-season sport. It's not. You conclude that you're now in the middle of spring workouts. Maybe talk us through, when did spring workouts start and how have those been going?
Yeah, I think pretty similar to football. It's a year-round venture. I know I've gotten asked that question a lot, maybe earlier in my career of, well, you're not in season. What the heck are you doing at work all day? And I should start keeping a list of things that I do or we do day to day. But no, it never ends. We were hard at work in the transfer portal, brought in 5 for this spring semester, 6 transfers overall. One's going to come this summer. 5 are here with us already. So we've got 13 healthy in our gym right now, and we're competing hard. We get to go 6-on-6 every day, which a lot of teams don't get to in the spring. They might have 8, 9, 10 players. And so they've got to get a little bit more creative. But yeah, we're in the middle of it. We started our 20 hours way back at the end of February already. We've played twice, Idaho and then Montana last Friday. And now we only have, I think, 4 weeks left before we wrap up our spring season.
How important is spring practice when it comes to getting geared up and all prepped for the fall?
Yeah, I look at it as in the fall, things are short, and you're trying to figure out how to win as a team, specifically for that opponent that's coming up that week. Spring is great because we get to break down some individual skill a little bit more, some stuff that we wouldn't get to do in the fall because it might be taking 2 steps back while we're in the middle of competition. Spring allows us to maybe break some things down, and we might get worse in the short term, but knowing that it's going to set us up for success in the long term. So it's massive. And again, the fact that we have as many players here that we do right now, my first spring here, we had 3 players from our roster that were going to be there that fall. And that's really hard to prepare your team. When in the fall, we only get 3 weeks before we play that first match. And so the spring is huge of trying to take those strides forward for the fall, so we don't have to feel like we're playing catch up come August.
You were giving us a little preview there before, but I was wondering if you can expand on it. So you mentioned with graduation and the transfer portal, what do you want Coug fans to know about the roster and where it's at for the spring?
It's deep. compared to the past couple of years, like the competition in practice every single day is legit. We're going back and forth and battling, and in spring we do a lot of mixed sixes, so it's not side A, side B. We mix everybody in there, and you most days would have no idea who would be the starters and who wouldn't be, because there's just a lot of competition right now, and that makes everybody better. We're excited because we have talent in the gym that's going to help us win in the fall, but it's also going to make the second, third on the depth chart better. The second and third on the depth chart are making first on the depth chart better. And so that's the biggest thing that we have for us right now is we are deep. Player 1 through 16 next year, we feel is going to be competing to be on the court for us.
Also, something you kind of alluded to, but it's not just practice, right? The spring is just a great opportunity for competition.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of fans don't know, that we get to compete, which is a little bit different than football. We get 4 dates of competition. So I don't know, about a month ago now, we went over to University of Idaho and played them, and then last Friday we played Montana, and it was incredible. We went up to Lewis and Clark High School in Spokane and had about 1,300 people show up to watch us in a spring match. Was awesome. I've never been part of. I haven't been part of that many big spring matches like that. Team played really well, and then we get 2 more opportunities. We'll be in Walla Walla at Whitman College on April 11th, and then finishing up the same day as the spring football game that morning against Idaho again. So, unique in that, and our players love it. You go against each other every single day. And it's nice to then get an opponent on the other side of the net and get to work together rather than competing against each other a few times.
You just mentioned the trip to Walla Walla. You all are doing a meet and greet down there, I believe, April 10th, and then maybe catch a match the next day, as you just mentioned. Maybe talk through that meet and greet if people are interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did it a few years ago, the year I was an assistant, and it went over really well. So we're doing a meet and greet at Armstrong Winery, 5 to 7 p.m. Friday night. So we're going to van over there, we'll have a couple of waves of our student athletes going in there, and just an opportunity to hang out with the volleyball team and get to meet some of the players and the staff. It's nothing fancy. Just get to go in and maybe have a couple of drinks and meet some of the team. And then, the next day, I can't remember our exact schedule, but I think we play Whitman, Eastern Oregon, and Lewis and Clark State on Saturday, sometime between the hours of noon and 4. Those times might be up on our website now. But that meet and greet should be a good opportunity for people in the Walla Walla area to come out and talk to us.
Yeah, it sounds like a really neat opportunity for that community. Once spring concludes here, you get through the competition season and the practice. What's summer look like for your student athletes, and what's summer look like for you?
Yeah, for our student athletes, they get a really nice break with school ending. I don't know, is it May 8th this year? They'll usually come back for classes somewhere around like June 15th. And I think that's when summer bridge starts for our incoming freshmen. And then they get to do workouts, voluntary workouts with our strength coach. We can't be in the gym with them. That's a little bit different than like basketball gets to work with their athletes year round. We can't be in the gym with them from April 25th until July 31st. So there's a long gap there where a lot of it is on them and our support staff to prepare them for season. And then they work our summer camps too in July, which is a blast. We get like 600 campers to come onto campus and meet some of our team, and our players get a little empathy for what it's like to coach, which is it's a great. I always say that players should have to take like a 4-month hiatus from playing and go coach, and you'll come back a better player. You'll see the game differently, no matter what sport it is. And then for us as a staff, we get a little bit of a break in May, which is really nice. That it's a quiet period for volleyball, so we can't be out recruiting. And school's not in session for us. So it kind of forces us to take a little time away, which is really nice. And then we come back end of May and we start preparing for our next recruiting class. So the class of 28 we can talk to on June 15th. Up until then, you can't have correspondence with them. And so on June 15th, we hit the ground running on getting to talk to those recruits. And it happens pretty quick for a lot of the athletes and for us of trying to get them committed to us as soon as we can. Camps in July, and then we try to take a little bit of a breather before season starts July 31st, which is moved up a week from where it used to be, to try to allow our athletes to ramp up a little bit rather than jumping right into 2-a-days.
Well, from the sounds of it, the answer might be yes for a blink of the eye, but I'm going to throw this question your way, and I'm sure there's plenty of ways you could describe it, but does that ever really stop?
No. No, it doesn't. But we're in a much better place than we were the last couple of years. That first year we were recruiting 2024s, 2025s, transfers, trying to prepare for recruiting in the 2026s. We're at a place now where we've got our classes built out for 2 years for the most part. You never know when you might add someone. But we're at a really good place now where we get to project out a little bit further and hopefully develop the people that we're bringing in rather than having to rely on the transfer portal as much. It's the reality of where college athletics is. We have to be in the portal. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind. But hopefully not relying on that as much in coming years, where we can bring in our high school athletes, develop them into the key contributors for us, and then be able to supplement that lineup with transfers. But no, there's always something there that you can be doing with recruiting. Even though we can't talk to the 28s until June 15th, we've been working on that class for the last 4 to 8 months, preparing for that day.
Well, Coach, we know you're busy, as you've just described. We appreciate you joining us. Grateful for your leadership, grateful for the impact that you're making on all these young people in the community. Keep crushing it this spring. Excited to watch in the fall in a new Pac-12 conference. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks to both of you, and go Cougs.
Well, big thanks not only to Korey, but to Rick Hart as well. And a thank you, as always, to our sponsor, BECU. For Jon Haarlow, I'm Chris King. That will do it for this week's edition of the Inside WSU Athletics podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week. Go Cougs.